Cool. My name is Mike Love. I'm born and raised in Oahu, Hawaii, and I've been a musician all my life. My earliest memories are music, um, and everything that I do is woven through music, and everything that I am is woven into my music. I make reggae music, spiritual reggae music. It's music of healing, of togetherness, of love, oneness, of revolution, of free thought. Um, I think that's important to specify because there's a lot of different kinds of reggae music, but mine is a type of music that's rooted in the messages of Rastafari, of love, of unity. Yeah.
So, how did growing up in a musically inclined family influence the path of becoming a reggae artist?
Well, for one thing, my dad was the first person that introduced me to reggae music, to Bob Marley and Jimmy Cliff. So that was the first seed planted. But I think beyond that, it's just music, and I play a lot of different kinds of music also woven into it. I can't say that I'm like strictly a reggae artist because absolutely not. I play all different kinds of music, kind of folded into reggae, and the foundation of it is reggae, and the message of it is based around Rastafari, and the message that was what attracted me to roots reggae music, the music of the spiritual legends that came out of Jamaica in the 70s. And that's the music that really, when I discovered it and got heavy into it, it was like it just resonated with me like nothing else I'd ever experienced. And so it became the music that is really at the foundation of all of my creation. But it's all kinds of music. I grew up playing classical music. I grew up playing blues, playing rock, playing folk. My grandpa, my great grandpa are gospel composers. My dad is like a folk rock kind of composer, and he really raised me on like Crosby, Stills and Nash and Pink Floyd and the Beatles, and of course Bob and Jimmy Cliff were two of his favorites. But all of that music really raised me, and it's all conscious music. It's all music with a message, and I think that I was raised by my beautiful parents to be a messenger, because they raised me with these ideas of togetherness, of being, a leader first for myself and within my family, just like they were leaders for me, and then beyond that, wherever the path takes me, wherever Jah guides me to, I will. That's where I am.
That's a beautiful answer. And just like you said, your songs, they fuse reggae with elements of every genre, really. You're really not a specific genre, but you're a fuse of. Can you share any ways that you approach integrating these diverse styles into your songs?
Well, it's interesting. You talked about Spotify in a negative light, and I think there are many negative aspects to it. I think basically surrounding the monetary aspects of it and how artists are paid out and everything. But I see it from a different angle, because I look at it as a different way that we didn't have growing up, that people can experience music. And it's very inexpensive to access, to pay $10 or $15 a month or something, and have access to everything ever recorded. When I was growing up, if somebody said, "Oh, you like this band Smashing Pumpkins or something," if it wasn't on the radio, which of course that band was, so I already knew I liked them, and I could go to the store and buy their album. But if they weren't on the radio and they were a more underground band, and I went to the store and bought them, I was like, well, am I going to spend the $16 or whatever on this album that I have no idea what this band sounds like? Probably not. So maybe there were a lot of bands that I would have been into, but I just couldn't afford to buy their album and actually experience it for myself. Whereas now, if somebody goes, "Hey, check out Mike Love, you might like him," they go, "Okay, cool," and they go and they can listen. They already have the subscription, so they can listen to it, and if they like it, then they can listen to it all. And if it's good and they like it a lot, then hopefully they'll listen to it 10,000 times, and I'll maybe make 50 cents off of those 10,000 streams. Anyways, but that's that. Coming back to that is like, well, if I was born 50 years ago or 60 years ago, it would be the hits that were on the radio and what was local. So, like, if I was born in Hawaii, I would probably play Hawaiian music, and if I was born in Spain, I would probably play flamenco music. And if I was born in Chicago, I would probably play the blues. Um, because that's what you had, that's what you were exposed to, is whatever music was popular locally, and then the top 40 on the radio, or top 10, or whatever it was, right? But now we have access to all music, all that's ever been recorded. So, like you said, it's hard to describe the genre of music that I am. Well, that's pretty much every artist that's come out in the last 15 years or something. Is like, it's hard to define the genre because we're influenced by so many different kinds of music and have access to so much music that it's like, yeah, if I like get really into listening to a bunch of Delta blues artists, and I'm listening to Blind Willie Johnson and Son House, like, I'm gonna write songs like that because that's what I love to hear, and it'll come through me, and in my own way. Obviously, I'm never gonna sound like those guys, but elements of that at least will find its way into my music, right? And it's like, if I didn't have access to that, then I couldn't get into it. But I think that's why it's genres are so hard to define these days.
Great answer, dude. And you're known for your unique one band style, looping in multiple instruments. How do you develop this technique, and what challenges have you faced perfecting it?
Well, perfecting it is a crazy word because the better that I get at it, the more imperfect I realize I am. I think that's like everything with music. The more you understand about it, the more you realize how much work you really have to do to achieve what you really are trying to achieve. And, in the end, that's what keeps you evolving and growing better. And you never actually do achieve what you're hoping to achieve. And maybe if you do, then that's the end of it. But I never have. And with the looping thing, it just came from, it really was a bunch of random events that led to it, like anything. It's like I just follow the signs, and these things like kind of create my path. And I was playing with a big band, and raising 3 kids at the time. I have 4 now, but at the time we had 3 kids, and we were broke, and we were like on food stamps, and I was playing with a 10-piece band and trying to make a living. And my wife was like, why don't you try getting a solo gig? And so I was like, okay, well, she's always got the wisdom, and when she suggests things, I usually just listen to her. And so even though I had never thought of ever doing anything solo, and always played in bands, and that wasn't something I really wanted or thought about doing, I was like, okay, honey, I'll try it. So I got a gig playing every Monday night, and it was a 4-hour gig every Monday night in Chinatown, in Oahu, in Honolulu. And I just developed it there. I never practiced at home. It was like this gig that was like, there was nobody there on Monday nights. And over the years playing there, I played there many years, every Monday night, 4 hours, and I developed this thing that like was what you saw today. And it just happened there live. And when you say like limitations or challenges, it actually was the opposite, because the limitations and the challenges of it reminded me that I needed to be able to strip a song down to its most basic form and be able to play it in a very simple way and have it still be powerful. And playing in these big bands and doing a lot of arranging, I had lost focus of that. And so doing that and doing the looping thing and having all the limitations, not being able to do like big breakdowns with the drums and horn sections, doing these big parts and, having these big buildups and stuff, having to just have a song be simple and have the lyrics be powerful and the melody and everything and the groove just be powerful enough to like work in a very simple way with one person. It changed how I wrote and how I performed, and it was one of the greatest things for me as a musician. So yeah, limitations can sometimes be your greatest gift, and challenges can be your greatest gift because you make things work um, within that, and you find the extremes you can push to within your limitations, and you realize that there really are no limitations, just different pathways, just different doorways.
Super inspirational. And your song "Permanent Holiday" became a viral hit on YouTube. How did the success of this song change your career trajectory?
Well, I was, like I said, I was doing a lot of gigs locally in Hawaii, and I had built up a nice little group of people that would always come out to my shows, and I was successful, and it was great. And then that video happened, and it was like it wasn't anything planned. It was a friend of mine asked me to do it, and he was like, "Hey, we got this thing, high sessions," and it was early in the morning. Didn't put a lot of thought into it. We had a gig late night before, and we were kind of like, "Oh, okay, all right, we'll wake up and do this thing." We went there, played each song one time, and was like, "Yeah, whatever, it's good," And then it went online, and it was cool. It was like at first, it had like some thousands of views, and I was like, "Wow, thousands of people have watched this thing." And then one day, my oldest son Charlie, was like, "Hey, your video's on the front page of Reddit." And I looked, and it was like it had gone like over 1 million views overnight, and it was like mind blowing, that and that really changed everything, because YouTube is such an international thing that from then on I started being able to play outside of the islands, because people saw that video and started checking out my music, and then I could really go anywhere because people were watching it in Brazil, and they were watching it in France, and they were watching it in the Philippines, and they were watching it in Australia. And it's like I continue to tour to all those places, I think primarily because of the spark of that video.
And you spoke about, the Rastafarian religion and your heritage and where you live being a big influence on your life and in your music specifically. Is there anything that's, your connection to nature, has that influenced your music specifically at all?
Absolutely. Growing up in Hawaii, it was all nature. All we ever did was go hiking in the mountains and finding waterfalls and going up to the ridge and bathing in the majestic beauty, and then going straight to the beach afterwards, and body surfing and bodyboarding, and that natural connection just happened intrinsically. It's like you live in a beautiful place like that. That's just what you do. And I didn't really even realize it or appreciate it fully until I turned 18 and I moved to Los Angeles, and immediately I was like, I got to get back home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came back home pretty quick, and when I returned home, I was like, I saw everything with brand new eyes. And yeah, I think that's, you mentioned the word religion, and I don't really consider anything that I follow to be a religion, because I think religion is, my definition and idea of religion is spirituality that's taken and formed into something almost political, or a tool for control. This kind of idea that there's one set of rules or one set of instructions for everybody on their spiritual journey. I think it's an absolute farce, and I think that it's designed to control people and keep them under control and put something in place, something that makes sense to people that are beginning their spiritual journey, to put in the place of, a void that we all start to experience as we grow up and we start to ask questions about the meaning of life. And then it's like, you have a religion that comes along and goes like, yeah, we figured out the answers already for you, here they are, and stick it in that hole. And then people go, okay, cool, I'm good then. So I think like, I think I have a spirituality, I have a spiritual growth, I'm a spiritual body, I'm a spirit that's evolving. And I'm very much connected. My spiritual evolution is very much connected to nature. I think all of ours are, and that's part of the reason why, um, you know, we're kind of corralled and herded into living in cities and being separated for that. It's the reason why, the soles on our shoes get thicker and thicker and thicker to keep us farther away from being barefoot and connected to the ground, nature, and the electricity, the energy that is in everything that's alive. So all these things around us are designed to keep us from that in the system that we live in. And so, I think for me and for everybody, a connection to nature is a vital part of spiritual evolution.
Right. So you're more of like, you like to be more of a guide than an influence on someone's specific path.
I mean, I'm just me, and I
Yeah.
think we are all our own guides. I'm just me having experience and doing what I feel,
Right.
and expressing myself from my own experience. And if you experience that and it gives you some sort of reflection, and you say to me like, "Oh, Mike, you taught me so much," I think, no, I just expressed myself, and you took that expression and learned something about yourself from it. So you taught yourself, and we're just reflecting on each other, right? Um, Not to say that we are not teachers and students of each other. We all are, but I think we are all our own greatest teachers, right? So I don't think of myself as like a guide or like a guru or a teacher for anybody. I'm just really a student and experiencing and sharing whatever gift I've been given.
Right. And can you talk about any of your upcoming projects right now?
Yeah, well, I just released a brand new album called Leaders. It's been a project that I've been working on for a long, long time, and I haven't really talked much about it, but it is part of a trilogy of albums called Leaders, Teachers, and Healers that were all recorded and created at the same time. So I have two more albums that I'm releasing kind of subsequently. I don't have release dates for them, but I'm kind of waiting maybe between 6 and 12 months, kind of in between each project, to give people time to kind of absorb and feel out the first album, Leaders, and then I'll be releasing the next one. But I'm always working, man. I'm always working on new stuff. I have a big tour with my band coming up supporting that new album. But yeah, I hope everybody goes and listens to it. It's like it's so interesting now, the way that people really kind of consume music, and the way that we market music through social media. It's a tough thing for me, because I'm like, I don't. It's hard for me to make sense of it all, and I'm kind of like a Renaissance man in that, like, people are making songs that are like 2 minutes, or even like 30 seconds or a minute long on TikTok or something, and I'm like releasing an album that has like 10-minute songs, a bunch of them on there, and it's like a concept album that plays through the whole way through. So it's really meant to be listened to as a one big project, but I think it's like I just have to be me and do things the way that I feel. I can't do it any other way. So I just hope that it lands, and it does, and it's like for the people that it does, That's who it's meant for, you know.
And being such an inspirational, wise man, in my opinion at least, um, what advice would you give to young musicians that look up to you and want to become a musician?
Oh yeah, I think it's easy. It's like there's two things I would really say that are most important. I mean, the main thing is to be authentic and to just experiment and try everything. And if you have a weird idea, like that seems like it might not work, see it through to fruition. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But most of the things that connect with people the most in music that I've created, that have been given, these ideas and inspirations that have been given to me, are ones that I questioned and thought, like, this is crazy, it's not going to work, or people aren't going to get it. But I've always just followed through and seen it through, and just been like weird enough to try anything. And all those things, it's like you think they're weird because they are different, and they're inspirations that nobody's ever received before. And that's why they seem foreign or weird, is because they are. And just because they are, it doesn't mean they're not going to work, and it doesn't mean. And that's the kind of stuff that people want to hear. They want to experience something they've never experienced, or they've never thought of, or they've never heard before. So that's the one thing I think, just see things through, and the things that feel like you the most, like, really dig into those. And then the other thing is just take every opportunity, because in music, I think the greatest form of music, the highest form, is live music, when we can make the music together. And if you can open yourself up to people that are there dancing with you, singing with you, feeling with you, then it changes the way that you play and sing, and it changes the way that you do things, because you're feeling the energy of all that universal energy. And when you can tap into that, truly is like the highest form of music. And it takes a lot of experience, I think, to be able to do that, to be able to come to a big stage in Lake Tahoe and play at a festival in front of a bunch of people, and then to be able to go to a party in somebody's backyard and do the same, and have the same feeling with 10 people, and everything in between. So I think just take every opportunity and experience.
Final thoughts?
Yeah, I gotta run, but
No.
yeah. Oh yeah, just thank you so much. Thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for helping to share music, and share a message of peace and love, in the with the legacy that your parents left you. I think it's beautiful and it's important. So thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, but